Larissa Pienkowski provided a family for me when I did not have the strongest family structure at home. And I think that is why I'm committed to bringing it to Massachusetts.
In over 10 years of organizing youth poetry slams in Massachusetts, I've seen firsthand a change that comes over a young person when they are provided a stage and a platform to speak their truth.
The young Chicago authors found me writing in a coffee shop and put me on a stage. The first poetry performance piece that I ever did was about losing my father. After I performed, I was literally embraced by people that I did not know, and it really validated my experience.
We look on the news, we look on movies, we look on TV, and we really see images of young people that many of us feel in our hearts are not representative of the truth that's out there.
We are entering our second year of offering this really unique opportunity for the young people of our state to get together, share stories, and create community based on the art of spoken word poetry and the power of youth voice.
I know that the one thing that can change a young person's life is having a solid mentor, someone who's consistently there, who cares about what they have to say and will give them a platform to say it.
Writing with students, editing work, performing, learning how to connect really shows them that not only can they be artists, but they can really be anything they want to do.
I think that the young people that I work with, that I grew up with, that we work with, oftentimes have to be convinced that they will live past the age of 22, right? And not only that they will live past the age of 22, but that they have the right to a good life, and that someone cares about their life and what they have to say.
The reason I always know Louder Than a Bomb is worth every ounce of my soul is because it really is a way of providing educational opportunities for young people in a way that is far more meaningful than anything you could measure on a test.
A lot of the schools that we need to work with and that really want to work with us don't have the resources to build a team or to build a after-school spoken word club or an in-school English classroom.
So far, we've been an incredibly successful organization just based on our own grassroots efforts and our willingness to roll up our sleeves and get things done. We really appreciate your contribution, and you can know that any dollar you give is going directly to supporting youth poetry. Everything from the logistical stuff, t-shirts, food, transportation costs, venue costs, notebooks, pens, all that good stuff. Your dollars are really what makes this count. They're really what makes this happen. And it's a way that we can show our communities, yes, this is important. Yes, young people can be more than a statistic.
This is a cultural movement, right? This is transforming the culture of not only Boston, but the state. This state needs this. This city needs this. This community needs this. These young people need this. We need you.
So they're going to be all over the place, I think, at the ICA and also Mass College of Art, which is down the street from you. But, you know, considering what took place in a week ago, you know, their name for some reason now sort of resonate more, you know, loud.
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
like, oh my God, the timing is just unbelievable. But I mean, I think it's great to, you know, to have the arts, especially when we're dealing with such, you know, horrific experiences in our lives as a city and as a state right now. I just can't imagine anything else. I think poetry is a great sort of avenue just to sort of deal with.
Yeah, it's a source of healing.
Yeah, and so it's just, the timing is just great. So I'm hoping people will support them. It's on Indiegogo, which is another sort of crowdfunding tool that people have to raise money. So they have to raise $10,000, and the event is next month. So they have, I think they probably have a good like 30 days to reach their goal. So, but I thought it would be like a fun start of a program, and then your magazine will be sort of the next highlight. But first I wanted to introduce you to our viewers so they can learn about your work and who you are. So let's start a little bit by talking about your background in terms of where you're going to school. Some of the stuff I already know, but our viewers have no idea. But just tell them a little bit about who you are and what you're doing at Simmons.
Well, my name is Larissa. I'm a sophomore at Simmons, and I'm the co-editor-in-chief of Sidelines Magazine, which is our college's poetry, prose, and art magazine. And for as long back as I can remember, I've always been a poet.
Always?
Always.
So before college years, right?
Yes,
Probably
yes,
like
absolutely.
Before your teens as well?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
I wrote my first poem when I was in first grade.
What?
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
No,
You
I
have to dig
don't. I remember it though. It was really silly.
Do you know what did you write about?
I wrote flower, flower, it has power.
I actually recently wrote one about flower power because you know how we've been dealing with like winter seemed to be dragging on, and I wrote a piece almost like the flowers, like the bulbs we vault under the mulch and all the snow.
I like that idea.
And it just sort of like literally like came out as spring, well almost spring, but it's really interesting like to see like what you write when you were younger.
Yeah,
and that was the thing I was like wondering like how now that you're in college, like do you see has your writing or even your poetry evolved?
Absolutely.
Since do you still write about flowers?
I don't write about flowers anymore.
So how has that evolved since being in college or even way past, high school?
I mean, I remember just my style has evolved. Like I remember in high school, my style was a lot more vague.
Abstract.
Yeah,
and
very abstract. But also now I'm beginning to just like hone in on what I really want to say. Okay. I've dabbled a little bit in like spoken word, but it's constantly changing.
So do you actually perform spoken word or just write pieces that are more?
I have performed. Yes.
Yeah, that part is like really tougher because I always feel like I'm willing to write it, but I'm like somebody else can just go and perform it because it's interesting. Like until probably recently, I've never seen, sort of perceived poetry as a performative art, and I see other people do it. I'm like, I don't think I can remember all my work on stage with an audience and just like do it. I can read it, like look down and read everything, but in terms of what I see some spoken word artists doing, it's just.
It takes practice.
You remember every word. I don't even remember like a short poem. Imagine like a spoken word. So I think doing that is really, empowering. But also seeing how young some of the students are, like the video we just saw with, performing in high school. I think it's great because a lot of time, some people discover that art later in life in terms of performing it, maybe in their 20s or even later, but to be able to like learn how to express yourself at such an early age. So were you doing spoken word as a teenager or later?
No, I wasn't. Much later, yeah. Actually this year.
This year you started out, which is great. But you also mentioned you may have a team, you have a team at Simmons.
Yes.
Which as I was watching the tape, I was like, oh my God, it's such a challenge just like promoting, the work, spreading the word about what's going on, but also finding people who want to do this all the time. So how many people do you have now?
I believe it's 6
okay.
people. Yeah.
And then you guys will perform together at different...
I'm not a member of the team.
Oh!
But I thought about it. I don't know.
Why not?
I don't know. It might be something that I do in the future.
Gradually.
Yeah.
Okay. You still have like years to go.
Absolutely.
So you can always join. So that was the other piece in terms of Sidelines Magazine. That was one of the things. Looking back now, I'm thinking, when I was at Simmons, for some reason, I don't know why I wasn't involved in that. It's really interesting. I think my writing took a back seat while I was in college.
Yeah.
I think being involved politically on campus took more of a priority, but for some reason it's interesting how now like within writing you can still do the work that you're doing in your community in terms of like still educate people, empower people, but for some reason it just was not there. So it's one of those things I'm like, I wish I was involved in the magazine back then. So talk to us a little bit about Sidelines and the process of publishing this magazine.
It was a long process
to get it out. Even this year, that's what got me excited. There's a launch coming up, and so how has it been, getting this one out?
It's been exciting, nerve-wracking. I think one of the biggest things I learned was that I can make all the plans I want and have a timeline, but I have to be flexible too because things are going to come up and something's going to fall through, and you have to have some like extra time on the side so that
to do it.
things don't fall apart.
I mean, do you have a good team in terms of?
Yes, I had an
to work with?
amazing team. Yeah.
Did you have a
Everyone
lot
was
of
pulling their
choices
weight.
to choose? Was it hard to choose the final
It was really hard.
pieces to show?
We choose our team with our advisor.
Okay.
And everyone applies, and we just really look at not only their qualifications but their availability and just how well the team will work together.
Okay. Is there a specific theme every year that the
No.
nothing?
No.
Nothing specific?
No, I've thought about it, but also I really like the idea of like keeping it kind of just open to whatever the poets
So
are
let it
coming
just
up with.
emerge.
But I think that the Simmons community has this way of kind of gearing towards a theme like just naturally.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the work that came out in this year's issue is kind of in the same vein. So
Without like
without anything
planning
formal,
it. It's not like premeditated. It's sort of naturally a theme came about.
very tight knit community.
Which is great. So are people gonna be so this Thursday you have a lunch party.
I do.
Are people gonna be sharing their work from
They
the magazine?
are. Not only are the newly published poets, writers, and artists displaying their work, but we're going to be having members of Cave Canem come in, which is a national poetry organization focusing on Black poets.
Awesome.
And they're very acclaimed writers, and I'm super excited to have
that's
them.
great. So it's about 2 hours, right?
Yep.
Like starting at 6.
It's starting at 6 p.m. at Simmons College in the Kotzen room, and it goes until 8.
Great. So for people, because I saw it on Facebook, I think you sent the invitation
I did.
there. So is that the only way people? Do you have to be a Simmons student to come, or can
No,
people
you
just...
don't have to be a Simmons student. Anybody can come. You don't have to RSVP.
Okay.
Just show up, enjoy. There will be light refreshments.
Okay. And then a lot of the students, so I'm hoping a lot of the students on campus will come and
I'm
support
hoping so too.
and
Fingers crossed.
members. Because you have like a huge list of people who are invited, and I'm hoping, it's finally nice out that I'm hoping people will come out. It's a nice and it's perfect because has it always come out in April?
Yes.
Really? Okay, that's good
so,
timing.
yes.
Yeah, because especially now, I think in some circles, like poetry is on people's mind and writing is on people's mind, and so I think it's a great time of the year to actually have the magazine come out. And so we were talking before the show about actually having the magazine online. So I don't know if there's a digital version, or do you have to do people get the print copy on Thursday, or do you buy it?
People get the print copy on Thursday for free.
Okay.
Currently, we're working on getting an online version up that should be up next year.
Okay.
And hopefully it'll include audio. So anybody who's written something will have like their recording.
They'll read it. And
yes.
Oh, that's great.
I'm really excited about that because that means we can include slam poetry.
Yeah. And then hear, because I think it's one thing to read the piece, but to hear, I don't know if it's going to be the writers reading the work herself.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. So so I think it would be great to attach that, especially now. I'm seeing a lot of that even on Poetry Foundation's website or Mass Poetry, that you're hearing the authors reading the work.
Yes.
It's not always slam poetry, but it's great to hear it in their own voice.
Of course, it really changes things.
Yeah, because
makes
I
it
think
more personal.
right, and I think hearing from the writer and then other people, like I may read something and it sound completely different than how the person who wrote it would actually have read it. So which is great. So how did you become involved with Sidelines?
My freshman year, every September there's a Connections Carnival at Simmons, and that's where all the students get to see all the organizations. They table out on the quad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I've participated in that.
Yeah. So I remember always wanting to be involved in the literary magazine in high school, but for some reason that didn't happen. But I was like, in college I'm gonna do it. So I went to the Connections Carnival, and I actually became the assistant poetry editor.
Oh, nice.
So I started off as that, and now I'm the editor-in-chief. So
editor. But you have 2 others. Are there 2 other editors or co-editors?
There's a co-editor-in-chief, and then I have a poetry, prose, and art editor, and then the assistants to those 3.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah, we go and promote the Girls Project because I think they also have community organizations who come, but also student organizations who come on campus to promote, to recruit pretty much, because this is where you kind of come out, and it's almost like a fair where everybody come, you walk around, you see the tables, like every club I think is like represented from sports to, student government probably. Right there to choose from. So that must have been overwhelming. And then you sort of narrow down on the publication to work.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you think you'll stay with them through
I'm hoping
senior
to.
year,
Yeah.
no graduation?
That would be really fun. They've never had an editor that continued from year to year.
Oh,
so
wow, that's great.
maybe
So do you want to stay in publishing as a career after graduation? Like, I know you didn't mention your major at the beginning. You want to tell people what you're majoring on at
I'm
Simmons?
actually a social work major.
Social work. So would you use, because I know within social work you can use so many tools for whether it's counseling or different work. So do you see, how does poetry fit into that? I mean, I get it, but
poetry will always be a part of my life in terms of writing it. As for publishing, I think that would be kind of on the back burner as like an alternative career.
Versus
because I definitely want to be a social worker, but also I love publishing.
Publishing at the same time. Wow. Huh.
Maybe it'll be a part-time thing.
You never know. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great when you can mesh them, but I know sometimes it's not always the case. But, you know, I think it's always interesting when you meet other writers or poets or even any artists, because sometimes you see them doing the art or the craft and then they're like, oh, my day job is, you know, there could be something completely uncreative or something completely different. So it's always interesting to see. It's like, I do this by day and then like when I have time, it comes out and you do, you know, how do people, I mean, do people react differently, like whether you're professors when they realize you also write and perform poetry? Is there different, I mean, it's the same Larissa, but is it different from the social worker and you?
I mean, none of my professors have ever seen me
They never.
perform. No.
But they know. Do they know? Do some of them know?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it's two different Larissas.
Two different? Okay.
I think it's just kind of the same Larissa expressing herself differently.
Are your friends aware that you do?
Yeah.
No. Because sometimes people don't know. It's sort of like a surprise where it's like, oh, this is what you do. You know, like a lot of people don't know that I write, because it's almost like you do so many different things that it's hard to, people focus on like one, depending on the environment or the setting that you're in. And then when you switch, it's like, you know, it's very different.
Yeah.
So,
I was very determined not to have it like that in college. I really wanted to just be the complete me.
Okay, which is great.
Yeah.
And I think Simmons is a great spot to do that. And even Simmons itself, like, I don't know, how did you discover Simmons in terms of as a place for you to go to college?
Well, I applied to three out of the 6 colleges I applied to were women's colleges. I never thought that I would end up at Simmons.
Never.
No, I didn't think so. It
Yeah,
wasn't my
me,
top
it
choice. But then it just ended up being where I ended up, and I've never regretted it.
Ever.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's the right place.
Never will. Yeah, even now I'm like, Simmons is like the best decision ever. And probably like if I have to do it again, I think I'll probably stay a student for life if there were enough majors or if money wasn't like a key thing in there. But I mean, I think it's a great community. You know, like so many people do so many different things, and I think, you know, regardless of like people's interests and background, like there's always something for you to be interested. I'm sure every year like there's like a new clubs, not just one, where people's interests they can sort of like explore it beyond their studies. So, which is great. So I'm hoping is there anything online that we can look in terms of like people can like the magazine on Facebook, right?
Yes.
So
if you search Sidelines Magazine on Facebook,
so they'll be able to find
like
it. So I'll probably look later because I think I'm already on.
You are on the event.
I think I've already liked it. So so that's the best way for people to get sort of more information. One of the questions I had for you was to think about, because a lot of time I think if you, let's say you're an English major, I think you're more exposed to writers. Do you have one you can say like this person is like my favorite poet or writer?
I can never decide on just one, but
one of many.
I mean, I love Stacey Ann Chin. She's amazing. Also Jennifer K. Sweeney, and a slam poet that I recently got into is Lauren Zuniga.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think there are so many I'm discovering. There's this anthology called Listen Up. With
I know what you're talking about.
That one is so good. Like there are so many. I think there's Ava Chan who's in there. There's a person named Tracy. Then there's so many different sort of poets I've never heard of. Most of them are primarily, I think, from New York and then the West Coast,
Yeah.
and some from, I don't know if we have too many from Boston, but and then others I think who have gone sort of beyond just performing, you know, locally wherever they're from, which is really amazing. But sometimes when I'm looking for like inspiration, a lot of time it's the longer pieces that you're writing ended up being more sort of like the type of pieces like you can really sort of like perform. And you know, they write some really amazing, and sometimes you read them and it's almost like, I mean, you could have written it, but it's almost like you were thinking like the same thing, which is always great to sort of like have that connection. But that was like one of the few anthologies that I really enjoyed, but I can never pick one. I mean, I think there are so many, like I know you know, we lost Adrienne Rich, I think, was it last year?
I'm not sure.
She passed away. And then there's so many other writers that sometimes you do learn about their work like in school or maybe like in history books or something, and then you realize they were also writers, versus sometimes you may just see the essays or their things in the paper and then you didn't realize they actually were writing more creatively instead of just sort of like things on like social causes. And I do like the writers who, and poets who do focus on some, you know, there's like some social consciousness in their work.
Yes, that's
versus,
my favorite.
Versus just the usual, you know, you know, it's a nice combination where you can sort of like, you read some stuff and it's like, oh, that is so sweet. And then you read some other things and it's like so on. And I think one of the things I discovered, I think in the last few years, like there was a poet who read at the inauguration. I think it was both inauguration for Obama. I think there was a poet there. And I don't
was
know
it Maya Angelou?
No, it was oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. He's from Maine. He's so he wrote a poem. It's called One Today. And it's he wrote the piece just for the inauguration. He actually read it during you know, during the ceremony, which I thought was amazing, because a lot of time it's not included. I mean, you have musician, like I think, you know, Beyonce was there, but it's always great to sort of have poetry included, which is really interesting. So I thought it was great because this year and then last year I think there was a poet, and maybe I think Maya Angelou may have performed at Clinton. I don't think there was anything happened during Bush. There's no way. I don't think there was one, but definitely the last two. I'll definitely find his name. But yeah, I mean, he's from Maine. He wrote the piece just for the inauguration. It was great because it sort of really sort of crystallized sort of like whatever the president wanted to maybe say. I don't know how they choose, you know, just like you couldn't choose like one favorite. Like I don't know how they pick like one writer to say, you come and like speak to America about whatever. And it's a great piece. Like I read through it and it's really like, it's great. Of course I can't read it the way like he did it, but I thought it's nice when they can include poetry in different setting. Like it doesn't just have to be like in academia or the coffee shop, but places where you're not expecting it, for example. I think it's good to be able to see it. So so again, let's remind people when the magazine launch is going to be happening, which is like 2 days away, actually.
I know. So the launch party will be happening this Thursday.
Which I'm hoping to go.
Yes, I hope you do too. From 6 to 8 in the Kotzen room at Simmons College.
Okay. All right. So one of the thing we wanted to do, so I think you read one of your pieces in October at the girls' conference, which was amazing. And then today what we're going to do to close the program is to read one of your pieces. Okay. And so so hopefully, you know, it was really great. So I'm hoping people, of course, will enjoy it. So now it's all yours to share your magic.
So this is Mangoes and Avocados. Child, there is a reason why you will enter this world 3 weeks late. The world is begging for a head start because 20 years from now, it will be running to keep up with your hair, streaming behind you as you run alongside it, leaving nothing behind but the faint scent of mangoes. 20 years from now, you will realize that you are no one's child but your own. The cradle was passed down in the shape of your own 2 hands. Any other effort to peel back an avocado womb would be too great, and you are impatient. Child, you will learn that 20 years is how long it takes to build families, reputations, and the courage to call yourself a woman. The space between seconds was meant for you to exhale. For 3 weeks will never be enough of a head start for the world to catch you red-handed. It will just be enough to chase you with nothing but your hair in sight.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm hungry just hearing that. So I want to thank everyone for watching. And I'm hoping I'll be able to interview some of the writers or meet some of the writers on Thursday, and they can come on the show and they can learn more about, people can learn more about them. I feel like people need to see more poets out and about and what they're doing, because a lot of time it's, you know, people have a perception of who poets and writers are. And so this is a great way to show them, you know, students locally right there down the street. So thank you again for watching. Thank you for being on. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. And so the show will be on YouTube. So if you miss it, you can always catch it on there. So we'll see you next week.
See you.